In this lesson, we're going to talk about automated reports. Now, an automated report is a report that's going to be generated by your computer system automatically on your behalf. For example, you might have an antivirus software that is going to be run once an hour, and every hour it's going to scan your system, and if it finds anything, it's going to send that as a report back to your security operations center. Or you may have some sort of an endpoint detection response capability on your system, and it will go out and continually be sending out a report once a day back to your security operations center so they can know what the status is of that machine and anything that was suspicious during that day. Here is an example of an automated security incident report that was generated by an endpoint and detection response capability that I've used in one of my previous networks. Now here you're going to see some basic fields such as the report ID, the generation date, the report period, and the prepared by. In this case, the report ID was 54738, the generation date was November 12th, 2023, and the report period was the entire 24-hour period of November 12th, starting at 0000, going to 23:59 and 59 seconds, which would be 11:59 p.m. for those of us who work in America. Now, when we look at the prepared by, this would normally have an analyst name, or if it was generated by the system automatically, just like this one was, you would see something like automated report or automated reporting system. Next, there will be some sort of an executive summary that will tell you a little bit about the report. In this case, it says that this automated report identifies a critical security incident indicative of a potential network breach. The report highlights suspicious file access patterns and multiple network requests to known malicious external IP addresses. Now, the great thing about this executive summary is you can read that and then determine, is this worth more of your time to go further down and read more about it? For example, if you're not the network analysis person, this may not be the report for you to look at. You may want to send this over to that person while you work on something else like a malware analysis if that's what your position is. So the executive summary is very helpful to summarize what is in this report, because these reports could be 1 page long, 2 pages long, 5 pages long, 10 pages long, or even 100 pages long, depending on the amount of activity in your network. In this case, the sample report I have is only 2 pages long, so the executive summary is very short, and we're only going to look at about 4 different incidents that were logged inside of this report. Now, the first one we have was labeled as a critical alert because it was a suspicious file access pattern was detected. You can see the timestamp. This happened on November 12th, 2023 at 4:53 a.m. Right there, that's already something that's suspicious to me because 4:53 a.m. is outside of the normal working hours for this organization. This organization keeps normal banking hours between 9 and 5, and so anything outside of that would look a little suspicious to us. Then we can see what user was involved, in this case, J. Doe, and we see the system, file server 3. We can then see the details about it, which was multiple rapid file access attempts were detected, and the behavior matches known ransomware footprints. The action taken, the user account was suspended automatically by our system, the affected system was kicked off the network and isolated, and the initiated data backup procedures as part of our incident response playbook actions. Next, we had a high alert, which is an excessive admin login failures, and again, this happened on the 12th of November, and this time at 9:34 a.m. This happened on our main controller, and this happened from the admin user because it was an admin attempt to log in, and this was on the main controller, which is our domain controller for this network. We see that there was over 20 failed login attempts in just under 5 minutes from the IP address of 192.168.1.105. That IP address is an internal IP, so that tells me we may have an insider threat, or we have somebody who's already exploited our network on one of our machines through something like a social engineering or phishing attempt, and now they're trying to break into our domain controller. The action taken was that IP address was blocked, so that communication can no longer happen, and the admin account password was automatically reset by our system because, again, we're using automated and orchestrated ways to respond to some of these minor security incidents. The third one we have is a moderate alert. This was unusual outbound traffic, and it occurred at 1:45 in the afternoon, and the system was database server 02. We saw a large amount of data transfer going to IP address 172.217.1.14, and this was flagged in our threat intelligence feeds. The action taken, the network connection was terminated, and traffic contents were placed under review. At that point, this would notify our security operations center, and they would be able to go in and do the additional cybersecurity analysis on this incident to see, was it malicious, suspicious, or was it benign? And it may have just been that we were backing up our database server, in which case it would have been benign if we were backing it up to an offsite cloud backup. But as we analyze this, we can then determine, was this really something that was a problem, or is it something that was allowed because it was part of our backup strategy? The next thing we're going to look at is on page 2, which is our fourth alert. And this is an informational alert, which just says software was installed. Now, in general, software being installed is not a big deal, but we do want to at least log it so we know what happened. Now, as we look at this happened at 6:53 in the evening. The user was M. Smith, and it happened on workstation 22. The software that was installed is called FileZilla FTP, and the file hash was not matching a known safe version. Now, this doesn't mean that this was bad. It may have been that this user, M. Smith, went to the internet and downloaded FileZilla and installed it themselves, which may have been against our acceptable use policy, but doesn't necessarily mean it was an attacker hacking us. So we'd want to investigate it and figure it out. In this case, we could see the action taken. The software execution was blocked because we're using application whitelisting, and the user was contacted to verify that they tried to do it. And if we called up M. Smith and they said, oh yes, I just tried to install it, we'd say, oh, bad, don't do that again. Next time, call the service desk and we'll install the software for you, and we can just file this away as a non-issue. But if he said, I didn't do that, and we start looking into it and he wasn't even at work that time, this means that his account may have been compromised, and we'd have to look into that further. So these are the kind of things you can find inside of your automated reports. After that, you'll have the incident analysis, and you can see here we have threat trends, user behavior, and data flow anomalies. We then have some security recommendations of what we can do based on the reports that we saw in this daily report, and then our conclusion, where we basically summarize what we did, what we saw, and what things need to be further looked at over the next couple of workdays. And then if we have any kind of appendix to this, it may include things like snippets of the logs to show us what was installed and what happened. We can see a list of the IPs and domains involved, and other things like that. All of this is data that can be put into the security report, and using automation and orchestration, we can not only look for these things and get reports on it, but we can actually act on them in real time, and this way we can mitigate some of these incidents before they become a bigger issue for us and cause a wide-scale data breach or network outage.